Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Monique Hawks. My topic is behavior systems in charter networks and their effect on student outcomes. The agenda for today's presentation, just allow it to catch up. First, we'll start with a bit of context into New Orleans charter school systems. Then we'll go through my research question, data collection methods, findings, the implications to those findings, recommendations, and then references. So the context of this is very, very important because New Orleans school systems are very special in that post-Katrina, New Orleans had to shift to a 100% charter school system, meaning that the public school system was completely wiped out. So this came out of a dire need for schools, but over time, charter schools never received any blueprint. There was no bar set. And so because of that, charter schools have been allowed to exist without accountability at the expense of student outcomes. So because of that, my research question is how can charter schools serving 5th through 8th graders construct behavior systems grounded in restorative practices? Even though I've always been an academic teacher, behavior has become a passion of mine. And so I wanted to explore what does this look like right now and where should we head as far as behavior systems in charter schools are concerned. So my data collection methods focus mainly on qualitative measures. I compared student handbooks of 2 charter schools that I've worked for in the city. I observed all of the 5th through 8th grade classroom culture at my current school. And then I looked at some literature review of current implications and the recommendations that they have. So I like to call this a tale of two systems. I've worked at 2 different charter schools in New Orleans, the first being Arthur Ashe Charter School, which is strict and very, very consistent with their disciplinary system. Some quotes out of their handbook: nothing is given, everything is earned, and uniforms reduce distractions. On the opposite end of things, I currently work at Audubon Gentili Charter School, very flexible and very lenient. In their handbook, it states that students should be free to be themselves, and it keeps with the mission of encouraging student individuality and expression. So even though these charter systems are completely opposite, they do still share some similarities. So looking at the handbooks and knowing that I've worked in the schools and seen how the handbook is played out in real time, the punishments are left up to administration's discretion. And the handbook does not match the level of enforcement. That means that this can either work to a student's benefit or it can work to their disadvantage. Whether there's favoritism in the school or the student is not well known and so they just receive a suspension without any consequence ladder, those are the similarities between both systems. Now, the difference is that their philosophies do differ. And having worked at both schools, I can say I do think they're trying to keep students' best interests at heart. I just don't think they realize the impact that it's having on students because lack of compliance is penalized completely differently. Arthur Ashe is very, very, very strict down to giving detentions for dress code or disrespect or no homework being done, whereas Audubon Gentili simply doesn't have that in place. It's very, very lenient. Some would say a free for all. So as we dive deeper and I look at the conclusions that I can make from the comparison of these student handbooks, the first is that lack of charter school accountability allows administration to do what they want. Like I said before, the dean of students really does just get to choose. If they want this student to have a lunch detention, they'll let that student have a lunch detention. It could be the same offense and a different student would get a suspension. It's simply just up to the dean of students. One trusts kids too much and the other just doesn't trust kids enough. And lastly, schools are at different extremes, but both could lead to school to prison pipeline. Now, to go into a little bit more detail about school to prison pipeline, it essentially means that students, more often than not, Black and brown students, are not being set up for success in schools. And so when they graduate, they don't know how to live in society without getting into a bunch of trouble. So for a school that's too strict, like Arthur Ashe, that's very militant, it doesn't allow kids to be themselves. They don't know who they are. So when they leave and they graduate, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to be successful. And on the other end, at Audubon Gentili, there's no rules at all. So when they get into the real world, they don't understand what consequences are. They can get into a lot of trouble from just not being set up for success. Another data form that I decided to use, I decided to graph the correlation between classroom management success and teacher experience at my middle school at Audubon Gentili. So as you can see, the key shows that yellow means that their classroom management is not successful yet, and the pink showing that it is successful. Now, you can also see that this is based on their years of experience. And you'll notice that the correlation is that if a teacher has more than 5 years of experience, that likely means their classroom management is very successful. 5 years or less, and it's kind of up in the air. And what I tend to notice is that teachers don't always make it to 5 years of teaching. Teacher retention is a big problem. And a lot of it is due to teachers not feeling set up for success. They don't have the resources, they don't have the support. And because of that, their classroom management fails. So what I can see is that a lack of clear behavior systems is creating an inequitable environment for teachers. Teachers have reported that they feel even more stressed. They feel dysregulated. And so because of that, so are the kids. I also think that novice teachers should be required to have an instructional coach to support with classroom management. I've had this in my years of experience, and it really has helped me really elevate in my classroom management skills. So when I looked at the literature review, I reviewed 2 different articles, and it essentially backs up everything that I've seen in my data. Student culture implementation does not match handbook expectation, and charter school students are being over suspended. Success is genuinely based on individual teacher experience, which is not sustainable. So the implications of this, neither system is setting students up for success. Punitive produces compliance, but children are emotionally dysregulated. They don't know how to exist without an extremely strict system. And then on the other hand, being lackadaisical produces inconsistency, but children are typically feeling that freedom. Children are feeling like, wow, this is so much fun. But teachers are stressed out, and then children enter into society unprepared. Now, while experienced teachers feel ease because they are able to keep their classrooms managed, inexperienced teachers are very, very stressed. And in turn, the next year, that experienced teacher may feel the stress of receiving students from an inexperienced teacher. That second grade class with a first year teacher, they go to third grade with a sixth year teacher. And now that teacher has to do more work to kind of make up for what was lost. My recommendation is that a creation of a balanced, positive behavior incentive system that is carried out consistently with clear consequences. This will prepare students for life, that they know this good thing happens to me, this good thing can happen back. When a bad thing happens, a bad thing will happen back, and it's carried out consistently. That's the key word here. And that novice teachers be provided with that coach to set them up for success. Ultimately, in conclusion, I can see that what we need is a balanced future. So as you can see here, if you have clear and consistent behavior ladder, effective teacher coaching, and adequate parent communication, you in turn create a strong school culture. And based on all of my findings, these 3 elements work together to create a cost-effective solution that can be immediately implemented. And these are my references. Thank you so much for listening.